Lawrence. Am I correct, Mrs. Bearden?
That is correct.
Maybe I didn't. If it's an email, I didn't check it lately. So,
She
It's okay,
may.
it wasn't planned.
All right, we are live right now.
They're alive.
okay. Good evening and welcome to the November 2nd Policy and Personnel Meeting for Pottstown School District. A couple things. We have initiated in the past few months a hard stop after an hour because we were running over continuously. So we will stop at when the green timer gets down to 0, the meeting will conclude. And secondly, just a reminder, please raise your hand. I will call them in the order that they're raised. If I don't see it, let me know, or anybody on the committee, let me know. Sometimes I might miss it as I'm trying to run the meeting, but we'll recognize you and we'll go that way. It just seems to work better that way on the Zoom platform. So, Mr. Boyer, having said all of that, would you like to put the agenda up and get us going?
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second. I will share my screen. There we go. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Right.
Can you make it 150, please?
Yes, sir. There we go.
Thank you.
You got it. Yep. You want me to begin, Mr. Klein?
You might as well. Yes, we have a fairly it looks like a short agenda, but I doubt we're going to get through the agenda tonight actually, because we're going through a document that Mrs. Spence provided to us. So we'll get through what we get through tonight, and what we don't get through tonight, we'll just move to the next board meeting if we don't get through everything. There's no point rushing it because it's a topic that we feel passionate and there's a lot of emotion involved, and we'll just get done what we can accomplish tonight. Mr. Boyer, if you want to go with the policy changes.
Mr. Klein, do you want to pause for a public comment, or did we do that and did I miss it?
You didn't miss it. I'm just rambling through. Are there anybody for public comment tonight?
Not at this time, Mr. Klein.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Boyer.
Okay. First policy, well, the only policy 249, bullying and cyberbullying. This is just a regular review of the policy. Let me open it up here for everyone. I'll blow it up a little bit here. So there isn't any changes to this policy at all from when we had reviewed it last school year. The only thing that was, I guess it is a change that was added to this policy is that, and you'll see it in a minute, underneath authority, what it says in authority kind of relates to Title IX, sexual harassment and discrimination complaints. And what was added or recommended to be added to the policy is a reference to our policies that I believe I think it was last month that we reviewed these, that have the complaint process and the attached complaint forms. So that is now linked into this policy so that nobody has to go hunting for anything related to this. And that's the only, it's just not a change, it's just an add-on into the policy, and everything else in the policy is the same.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding this policy with that addition to it? All I'm seeing on my screen right now is you, Mr. Boyer. All right, so if there's no questions or comments, is everyone okay if we put this on the meeting for the whole this month, the end of the month?
Yes, I'm okay.
Okay. All right, so we can add that to the agenda then.
Back to the agenda here. On the agenda, we don't have any personnel items to discuss. The next item is an informational item. It's a proposal that was submitted to us by Ms. Spence for recruitment and retention of Black educators at Pottstown School District. I will open up the proposal document for everyone. Give me a second while it loads, and then I can make it larger for everyone. Okay. Mr. Klein, do you want to have Ms. Spence speak to it, or would you like me to go through it?
I think we should allow Ms. Spence to just a recap for anybody who might be watching. This was submitted too late to get on the agenda last month. So I gave everyone homework and said we should read through it. And I also asked you, Mr. Boyer, to spend some time and let us know how we are doing with each of these points that she raised. Maybe we're doing them, maybe we're not, maybe we're partially doing them. So that's the meat of tonight, I think. Mrs. Spence, do you have anything you'd like to speak to about this proposal before we start breaking it down and moving through it?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, 1 second. Just trying to. My camera. Okay. So I submitted this proposal based on a conversation that I had with Mr. Jeffries, and he put Mr. Boyer on the phone. That came about because 2 meetings ago or 3 meetings ago, I wanted to bring this topic up, and I was told that to speak to Mr. Jeffries about it. So he called me and he added Mr. Boyer onto the phone call, and we talked about this topic. They said they were interested in ideas. They needed help, as much help as possible, but I won't put words in their mouth. They can speak to that on their own. And so based on that conversation, I said, I'll put something in writing, and this is what I came up with. For some reason, this was brought back to committee when I thought it was out of committee. But either way, here we are. I realized that there is such a thing called the law of diminishing returns. I taught students that in business camp this summer. And if anyone listening doesn't know what that is, you wake up in the morning, you have your first cup of coffee. It is great. It wakes you up. You're empowered for the day. You even have a second cup and it feels super great. You're feeling good. You're off to a good afternoon. But after the third one, it doesn't really have that much of an impact. So after saying this topic and bringing this up for 2 years, I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact. So I am respectful of the law of diminishing returns, and I will sit quietly and hear this conversation as you discuss this proposal.
Okay, thank you very much, Mrs. Spence, for putting this proposal together. I was trying to figure out what I thought was the best way to go through this, and I think it's best if we look at your points and then see, as I said, see how we're doing. If we're doing, is it a benefit for us, do we feel, to implement? So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do as we go through this tonight, and if it takes more than tonight, then in another meeting or two. So, Mr. Boyer, you've done some homework, I understand.
Yes, I will share a different document here. Need to make this larger as well. So Mr. Klein, I can go through it if you would like.
That's
And
probably best. It looks like you spent a lot of time on this, so yes, please go through it.
okay. I'll get back to the questions at the top in a minute. But if we took each section of the proposal and looked at it in depth with our directors, I looked at it with, and our building administrators, principals, and we went through some things and tried to look at some things that we're currently doing, some things that are on here. You'll see that are initiatives that we have either done, completed, or have been involved in. I don't want to read it word for word, so I will, summarize things, but I will definitely share this entire document with everyone after the meeting. But with number one, establish the Be a Change ambassadorship. You'll see in the boxes underneath of each number are some things that we have done or are currently doing at Pottstown School District. So for this one, there's no direct program match to number one. But things that we have done, like we have met with our minority groups of staff. We are in participation now with a teacher parity project with the Pottstown Area Health and Wellness Foundation. That is not complete. That is still a work in progress. There is 3 links here that would show the initiatives in greater detail, and believe me, the teacher parity draft project is a very extensive document. And I can go through that with you at another time, but that I wouldn't do justice to it just by breezing through it. We do have some recruiting efforts that we continue to take part in annually. Job fairs that are hosted by MCIU that you can see revolve around diversity. And they also revolve around some campaigns that we do related with social media. And also you can see we have a ongoing type of recruitment where I think I showed our committee last year with an advertisement as on demand. Someone can inquire, investigate, get interviewed, you name it. We'll bring them in. The second bullet here with engagement in colleges and ambassadors to visit HBCUs. You can see here, this could be completed without extensive change. We have previously partnered with Cheney University in an extensive student teaching program, but we could definitely approach this again. I have been in contact as, ironically today, the director of not the director of education. I can't remember what her exact title was, but she has contacted me back because I have requested that if we could go up there and attempt to recruit and set up some type of station there at their convenience to try to give information about our school district and our hiring platforms. I know we have embarked in this in the past, and I had talked with Mr. Rodriguez about speaking to this to the committee because he has more knowledge of it. He was principal at the high school when we did do this. So Mr. Rodriguez, if you wanted to add a little bit of this, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely. And this is just basically for context, and that's all, so that committee members and others know what happened. So not under my leadership. I can't even remember who the superintendent was at the time, but I was the superintendent of, I was the principal of the high school, and I was approached and said, hey, would you be amenable to having some student teachers in from a local HBCU and help us problem solve having them up here, because it's not a short trip, and transportation was going to be an issue. So we did that, and honestly, the transportation issue, I wasn't able to offer much. That had to be solved in a different way, but I was able to match up teachers, student teachers with our good teachers, because having a positive student teacher experience is really, really important. And I wasn't that far away from my own student teaching experience, where if it wasn't for teachers who knew what to do, I would have had a very negative experience and maybe not wanted to be a teacher. So we had a group of I'm going to guess about 6 or 7 students, all of which at -1 were of African American descent. And I think they had a pretty positive experience. I was able to speak with the director of education at the time, my supervisor, Dr. Sparagana, who was helping to spearhead it. And we also had regular meetings with the supervisor of that student teaching program, whom we had gotten on board. And the idea, it was kind of a pilot program. The idea was to give them a positive experience in an urban environment in hopes that they would want to apply for the jobs. And we told them that. So although the experience was good and we got lots of positive reviews on our students and the school and the learning environment, we actually did not net any interviews out of that, except ironically for the Caucasian student in the group. She applied for the job, but most cited the fact that they wanted to be closer to home as the main reason, not because they didn't have a good experience. So we noted that and discontinued the program at the time. The lesson for us is that distance and transportation is a huge factor when it comes to recruiting. So that's now many years in the past, and doesn't stop us from going out to colleges, but definitely something that I don't know that everybody on the board was aware of that happened. So that's it.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Also involved in this is that we do visit local universities. We have Eastern, Penn State, obviously Montgomery County Community College, and I've been to Westchester University with some things. But Pottstown High School also has HBCU visits with our students and attended what would called Instant Decision Day. So these things have been done in the past as well. The second one with
excuse me, Mr. Boyer. Before we go to new bullets, let's go back to the bullet we just covered and see if anybody just right now off the top of their head has any other ideas, if that's okay.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem.
Anybody have any additional ideas? Mrs. Bearden, I see your hands up.
Hi, yes. I'd also like to add, not just Cheney, that we should also be reaching out to Lincoln. They're in our backyard, right? So if we can add that, and Howard and Bowie State aren't too far. If we're going to do a match, right? So I would just think that we would reach out to the HBCUs in the same fashion that we reach out to the other, I guess, which would be considered more traditional schools. But if we could minimally have about 4 HBCUs that I know of in our kind of close enough range. Still, if there's a distance and transportation issue, I'll leave that as a roadblock for them. But if we can reach out to Lincoln and those other 2, Bowie State and Howard, that would be great.
Yeah, I should have mentioned this, Mrs. Bearden. I reached out to Lincoln and Delaware State. So what I looked at, the proximity of things, I had thought that probably, obviously, Cheney, Lincoln, and Delaware State were probably our 3 closest.
Mm-hmm.
I can certainly reach out to Bowie State and also Howard if you would like.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, just to receive one, it's worth it. So good interest. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other thoughts or comments or ideas? Let's move on to number 2 then, Mr. Boyer.
Okay, thank you. Number 2, Afrocentric curriculum development, involved in the 2 bullets mentioned with curriculum and workshop. at our high school, we do have a course of African American history that's grades 9 through 12. There is an isolated curriculum with that, and a textbook. 10th grade involved in the curriculum is the civil rights, 1950 through 1960, and some nationalism. And then I did, and this, I can't take credit for this. Mr. Oxenford helped me extensively with this. If we look at our list of novels that we have, and I can bring this up as well for the group to see. I think now this is not also, this isn't 100% complete, because there's some things here that we're still working on with things, but you can see that, highlighted in here. It's going to take a while to load this.
Yeah, it's a large document. You might want to come back to it.
Yeah, when I send this out, you can definitely kind of get an understanding of what I'm saying. But, we have a number of our novels that incorporate diversity. And I think when we did just a quick math of things, it's about 30% of our novels incorporate diversity or some type of curriculum that is inclusive. Did we have any questions about number 2 at all?
I do have a question. So 10th grade U.S. history, that's taken by all 10th graders, correct?
I think. Now I know
Yes.
Okay. And do we have any idea what the enrollment is for the African American history that's an elective?
I think that's silence means no. I know it's
Okay.
it's fairly popular, and I think we could probably run more if we had more teachers. But as we do, as you know, Mr. Klein, we do all the requireds first to make sure that nobody's being held back for graduation, and then electives after that. We can look that up and get that back to you guys next time.
But just hearing that it's a popular elective is great news, I think.
Yep.
Mrs. Spence, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, and did I see that list correctly, that we're saying Lord of the Flies is a African American history book? Or is that just a list of books that have mention of African American people of color in there?
Yeah, it's not. That's just a comprehensive list of novels. That the whole list is not mentioned as African American literature.
Okay, and what about on the elementary level, pre-K, kindergarten? What kind of I don't know if history is taught in pre-K or kindergarten, but the earlier the better to teach someone pride about their culture. Is there anything done at that level?
That is still a work in progress that we're looking at. It's like when I first opened it up, there's still some work to do on that, and we can definitely, get you that kind of information of where it's at that too as well.
And Mrs. Spence, I can just comment now that in conversation with some of our new tools, such as foundations and others, the answer is we are including more at the elementary level, but we have absolutely noted the fact that some of the companies that have the research-based products have an absence of diversity in some of their pictures. So that is something that was noted by our teachers, and they pointed out to me in one of my connecting with them on how things are going just informally. So we know that that is an area for growth at the elementary level. It's an excellent point.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yeah, just to that point, I can't speak to the curriculum at the elementary level, but I will say as a parent who's been in the school a lot and had a lot of books come home from the library and seen what's in like the classroom libraries, I've been impressed with the level of diversity there at that like the resource material level at the library and in the classroom, reading selections.
Thank you. Mr. Boyer, I think we can move on to number 3.
Number 3 was back to our roots, a cultural exchange program, African educational trips, exchange programs. We don't have a direct correlation related to programming, but the bullets that I have here, like we have expanded travel experiences, but done to include Africa at this time. But however, we, our engineering program did a 3-week service in Kenya. And, we were unable to find an African exchange program at this time, but that definitely could be developed. We do have some, ideas here that, with, I think Dr. Gianabel had mentioned, virtual collaboration with countries in Africa he has experienced before, but I think this could take some extensive funding, just with preliminary investigation of things. And I don't know if anyone has any questions about that itself, but that's what I have kind of to date.
Anybody have any thoughts or ideas, comments on number 3?
So you said it's going to take funding to jump on a Zoom call with?
Well, I don't mean that, that wouldn't, but if, the exchange of, back, like real exchange, I think that could take some funding.
Mrs. Bearden, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, so I was going to say I would love that as a virtual thing that we could set up if we have targeted schools or programs educationally that we could, our students and the teacher in classes could Zoom call other teachers in Africa so that the students can see the other students in the classroom, and the staff could communicate and kind of have like a coordinated teaching and learning program where they ask questions and answered questions. I think that would be great from elementary school clear through high school. That would take out some of the issues related to any concerns with health and post-COVID and what's going on. I think that could be something that we could really look at getting, if we could get some schools there. Perhaps we can start working on that.
Agreed.
The only downside looking at it as a former high school principal would be the time zones. I think I'm guessing they're 7 or 8 hours ahead of us. Maybe they'd be willing to come in at night. Who knows? Maybe our students would be willing to get up early for that. So it sounds like a great idea. Just the time zones is something I think are one of our first obstacles there. But no, it sounds great. Mr. Armato.
Yes, thank you. Not to commit people to things. However, it seems to me that, and if we've done this, I've missed it and I apologize, but we have the opportunity to create situations where students in some type of either assembly or some type of group meeting could see and talk to the teachers and administrators that we have on our own staff now. They could share their stories, not just on an individual basis, but something in more of a group manner. We have, I think, some very positive representatives in our district now as teachers and administrators. And in fact, at least one administrator that I know who came from Africa, was taught in Africa, and is now here with us as a building administrator. I think it would be important for kids to hear those personal stories in a more personal setting than let's have an assembly where there's 600 kids.
That's a great idea, Mr. Armato. So you're saying that you would step into the middle school while Mr. Wangia met with all of our classes at the high school?
Sure. I mean,
Better yet, just start at the middle school. I mean, Dr. Wangia is right there. My understanding is that at least even on an informal basis, this is already happening because they ask him about his upbringing and notice his accent. So yeah.
yeah, right. Up to this point, all of these things are happening on an informal basis, whether it's right before class starts or after the class is over and there's time waiting for the bell to ring or whatever. But I think it's worth exploring of other ways to accomplish that.
That's a great idea. Great idea. Any other thoughts on number 3?
Yeah, these things are probably happening, but it's not happening enough, and it's not happening in a manner that's empowering our students, in my mind anyway, to achieve better results. So if it can be amplified, then that would be ideal.
I think that's what Mr. Armato was saying, Mrs. Spence, be a more systematic, methodical approach to it rather than just popping in at the end of a class. And I think you're saying the same thing, Mr. Armato.
Thank you. Never to be one to let up an opportunity, pass up an opportunity to promote the value of co-curricular activities, both athletic and non-athletic. But it seems to me, again, here's an excellent example. If I look at our athletic coaching staff, I see a lot of representation of students of color, and again, a great opportunity to have an impact, because I may be prejudiced about this, but I believe that coaches and sponsors of co-curricular activities can have a very powerful impact on students because they create a different type of relationship than the classroom relationship and have a great opportunity to make a difference.
Thank you.
Can I have a comment?
Sure, Mrs. Spence.
So I think co-curriculars are great, and it is an awesome thing to have pride in your sports teams and so forth. But as a history, African Americans have been used as mules for sports pride. And I think we're not only can excel in sports, but I do believe we excel above and beyond academically when we're given the opportunity. And the public school system is undeniable that it is a system set up that stifles the African American voice. There's very little representation. And if the only thing that we can say we have a representation of is someone running a ball, I don't think that's ideal. And I do get it. I know that it helps with, other things and stuff like that. But not everyone's going to play basketball. Not everyone's going to play football. And not everyone is interested in the arts. There are students that are brilliant, smart, but just can't, for whatever reason, it's not amplified, right? So I think these ideas will help bring that out, not only just in sports, but in other areas like debate, and history, even math, science, all the academics. So thank you.
Sure. Mr. Armato and then Mrs. Bearden.
Yes, thank you. Not to be misinterpreted, I was not suggesting that coaches are the role models for students to be the next prospective student athlete, in whatever sport. My point was that they have an opportunity to talk about how to become a successful person. They have opportunity to talk about the importance of academic success. They had the opportunity to talk about becoming good role models for adult life, not become an NFL football player or a basketball player or whatever the equivalent of an outstanding volleyball player would be. But the difference in making a positive impact on character, personality, development of work skills that lead to after school success.
Thank you. Mrs. Bearden?
Thank you. So I think my take on it is the same as it's always been, and I think it kind of lends to what everybody is saying here, but is more of a comprehensive thing that it's not one direction, right? It can't just come from this area or this area or this. It has to be something that is kind of like embedded and more comprehensive, that we have, the teachers, we have the coaches, we have speakers and presenters, right? That come in physically, but also our Zoom calls, right? We could have different presenters that are with leaders, that are local, that are not local, with professors and so forth. I think it needs to be a more comprehensive thing, which is why I was not one ever for just one. It was more that I was looking at a cultural diversity and inclusion program or curriculum versus seeing this from one direction. One direction won't do what it is that I think we desire to do. So I think everyone kind of has said something positive on what we need as far as experience, but there's no one thing to point at to say this will be a great adage. I think it needs to be a whole more comprehensive thing. And so with all these things, I think we're talking about, to me, it just really seems like it's not going to be a one size fits all. It's going to be a whole host of things that has to happen in order for the holistic view to come into place for a child, for any one child that's considered a minority or a Black child. So that's just my take on it. I don't think anything anyone has said is wrong, but I think it is, we need, yes, we need this, and yes, we need that, and yes, we need that, and yes, it's all those things we need to have a yes to, is my take on it.
Thank you, Mrs. Bearden. Mrs. Spence?
So my response to what everyone added in the answer to my proposal is always when. It's always not now. It's always kick the can down the road. We're talking about things that we've done in the past, like with the recruitment at the colleges, and that it was discontinued. And yeah, we can pick it up at some point, but why can't things continue? Why can't this be implemented as soon as possible, or amplify if it's already implemented? It seems to be that something that is going to uplift and empower African American students that are nearly the majority of the school district is not happening fast enough. The focus should be on teachers, and all of these other things are great in the interim until there's more teachers. But when will this happen is my question.
Thank you. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Boyer. These aren't all things that happened in the past. The recruitment of Black teachers is an ongoing process. I mean, some of the things we said happened in the past, but they are not all in the past, correct?
Yeah, no, not at all. Some are happening now.
Right. So it's an ongoing process, Mrs. Spence, and I like what Mrs. Bearden said. It needs to be a multi-pronged effort because you don't know what prong is going to attract which student, and you need to have enough prongs out there that the students will find one and grab onto one and say, yeah, this is interesting to me. This is where I want to go with it. And that's where I think your suggestions are valuable, but I think we need to get through all of them before we figure out where to spend our time and our efforts and our funds to add prongs that we currently don't have. That's what we're in the process of doing right now.
Okay. Keep in mind, this is something that came about with a conversation with Mr. Boyer and Mr. Jeffries. So it's not something that I just decided to send to the board. This is what they asked for.
Okay.
So if they were doing it, then not sure why they wanted the information.
Okay. We'll move on to number 4 then, Mr. Boyer.
Okay, number 4 speaks to the Center for Black Educator Development. It mentions the Black Teacher Pipeline Fellowship. So, I reached out to this specific organization, spoke with Mr. McGill in October, who's the regional manager in Philadelphia, just about programming, the organization, a partnership. And I'm going to explore some things with their, executive director. I don't have any detailed information yet, but, we have made that contact with that organization. Culturally relevant events that we are doing now. We are in a cultural proficiency daily, or we have meetings related with Barbara Moore Williams that are currently underway with our admin group, teacher group, with a 2-year implementation plan related to professional development, regular participation in ethnic heritage celebrations. We would need some more information on, I guess it's Sankofa events. We didn't gain any perspective with looking into that a lot yet. I don't know if anyone has any questions about number 4. Sorry.
I wish, would you please elaborate with Dr. Barbara Moore Williams? I'm very familiar with her, but a lot of the board members probably aren't and aren't aware what's been going on in the timeline for this.
I mean, I can speak to it. I think we're into meeting 3 or 4 with her. She has, isolated objectives.
Athlete compensation.
She has isolated objectives during each meeting related to cultural awareness, cultural proficiency. We do things that are research based out of 2 textbooks. And then, after each class, like we have certain assignments or homework, you want to call it, that we have to then bring back to the group. And I think they're now into, I want to say it might be the 2nd meeting now with the teacher group. But it has been very informative. It is, obviously she brings a wealth of experience with her. She's done this with a number of school districts. So we're not the first, but, as an admin team, it has brought an awareness of different things that are now, going to be hopefully implemented and move into a lot of our buildings and classrooms.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, is there anything you would like to add about that? Like the timeline and how this came to be?
Well, this was as a result of our prior iteration of this very conversation, and Dr. Williams was someone whom we had considered in the past, but at the time didn't have the funds, wherewithal, or resources to have her in. I will say, our hope is to train a few different groups, because we have heard in other school districts, she's a local trainer, so we had lots of different references that we could go to hear what the actual effects were, if it actually improved the cultural and academic experiences of minority students. and it did. We got excellent praise from her as a trainer. And I will say that she's very popular with the teachers. Teachers really like both her style and her message, and I think are seeing things in a new and different light. She certainly challenges us, and she's not afraid to do so repeatedly in one meeting. But she also does so in a disarming way that doesn't put everybody in their racial corners, so to speak. She does so in an inclusive way. So the training continues. We're done, and a lot of this is mainly because she has suggested this is the best way to create change, not to have a bunch of super meetings all at once, but to do so slowly over time. So we're getting prepared for our third meeting with the teachers and our fourth meeting with administrative staff. And this was, and you all approved a 2-year plan. So this is the beginning of a 2-year plan with more groups to come.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments on number 4, Mrs. Beard? I'm sorry, Mrs. Bearden.
I thank you. No, it's okay. So as Mr. Rodriguez said, this was something that I actually proposed several years ago. We didn't have the funding for Dr. Barbara Moore Williams. And, you know, this was something I felt quite strongly about. I came on the board with the same set of goals, that my number one was to make sure we were safely educating our children as best as possible, but that we had some cultural proficiency. And that's why I kept it on our board workshop, because cultural competency is not something that you can, it is not something that you can hit and fix. It is something that has to be ingrained, and it has to start and continue. It can't be an in-service this day, or one class for students on this year. Cultural competency and proficiency is something that you have to work towards over a period of time. And even then, it will never be perfect, but you don't stop moving forward. Having Dr. Barbara Moore Williams is a forward direction with us receiving the funding that we received. Her reputation certainly preceded her, and we were lucky to be able to have the conversation with Mr. Klein, who worked with her directly, and so he could actually speak to firsthand knowledge on how she helped another district. That being said, you know, I've heard nothing but positives about it, but I want to experience it for myself, and I'd like our board to experience it. And so I'd like for us to sit in on a cohort. So as soon as we're able to do that, I'd like for us to be in one of those cohorts and gain some insights and some understanding on why and when and how we know what we know as issues. But what I was saying was, we don't just want to implement something and it's here today and gone tomorrow. We want some good, real, concrete evidence of what works and what doesn't work, and then create a plan for our district, you know, tweaking and doing whatever it is that works for our district, because we're going to be unique in a pool of districts, but we can mitigate some potholes that we don't have to hit if we have someone like Dr. Barbara Moore Williams leading and giving us pure guidance that she knows firsthand. So I'm glad that we have moved forward. That's just one of the items that, you know, we wouldn't even be able to have if we didn't have that funding. So I'm glad that that is a move forward and not wait. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or comments on number 4? Okay, we have about 10 minutes yet, Mr. Boyer. Let's move on to number 5.
Okay. Number 5 was digital elevation, related to digital profiles, social media influencer collaborations. So, you know, what we do, we do not currently have specific digital profiles for Black educators, but we do celebrate achievements, during Black History Month. We have local Black leaders related through Strive, YWCA, YMCA, but there's no direct connection to Black influencers, but, we're willing to definitely look and explore this. If there isn't any questions, I can go on to number 6, if you'd like.
I don't see any hands up. Go ahead.
Okay. With our Future, Our Voice initiative, and student testimonials, something we could do with all staff, highlight our African American staff during Black History Month. We do these things now. Students in our early child education program, I mean, they spend significant time in classrooms at elementary and pre-K level with co-ops, and we have done some things to hire them for support staff positions, but developing ideas and things, with our social media platforms and things that we promote, is definitely something that we can expand on. And then
Mrs. Spence's hand is up. Is it on what he just covered, Mrs. Spence? Your question?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So our African American students are African American all year long. I have lived experience of being African American all year long. So John does a great job with highlighting student success. He did a couple of profiles in September, and even I believe it was towards the end of last year, with one of our high school teachers. I believe they just got their PhD. So that is actually ongoing. He actively looks for students or leaders in the community that attended Pottstown School District to highlight. I've sent him a couple, but unfortunately they didn't attend Pottstown School District. But so I like to say that is happening right now. Can it be amplified? Of course, absolutely. But there's only a few Black teachers in the school district. So with that said, when we bring in more, it will, or we could use what John already has to also recruit teachers and help with mentorship and retaining those teachers.
Thank you. Mr. Boyer?
The other bullet underneath, I guess it would be number 6, with parent involvement, engaging Black parents in discussions. Our focus has been to engage all parents, not just minority parents, but we do things with engaging. We have this year, not this year, I'm sorry, at the end of last year, with our ELL, ESL night at Rupert, which was very large attendance with that. But that is certainly something we could definitely build to expand on. Like Mrs. Spence had said, it's a fantastic idea to expand on.
Mrs. Spence?
Yes, if I can stack on that, we have a great organization, Family Advisory Council. Last year they were told it was the year of the parent, but then they said that was a mistake. Whoever said it was whatever. What I'm saying is that they still need an email address. They still need some items. I believe there was a list sent over. They advocate for the African American families in the school district. They do a great job. I'm sure you all see Kismet Mead in the middle school all the time. She volunteers her time. Mercedes volunteers her time after work. And of course, Tamara, Inez, these are all great family leaders that are African American parents that have ideas to have more engagement and more involvement with families in Pottstown, all the families, not just, as you said, African American families, but if you think the majority of the school district and the majority of the students or nearly the majority are African American or minority, then all the students would include the African American family. So I think if we can give them the resources that they need to continue to do the work that they do, that will check off this list right here, this one bullet point right here.
Thank you. So let's try to get number 7 in yet, I guess, Mr. Boyer. We have 5 minutes left, huh?
Okay, sure. Number 7 was, mentorship beyond borders, global mentorship program, international webinars. This is something we don't participate in these. I don't have any information to bring with this one right now, but I can continue to investigate some things with this.
Mrs. Spence, when you suggested this, do you know of programs that exist? Like, do you know of specific programs that we could point Mr. Boyer in that direction?
So yeah, there are programs, but I think I'm not going to send a proposal over anymore because of, this is something that the administrators should be able to, engage, find out, figure out the resources. As a school board director, I'm told that I'm supposed to be in the helicopter and not given daily instructions on how Mr. Boyer or Mr. Jeffrey should do their job. So I'm gonna stay in my lane. I submitted this proposal based on a conversation, but I'll just stay in my lane and let the people that we hire to do this job do it.
I'm not suggesting that you do their job for them. I'm just suggesting that if you know of organizations, you could save them a lot of their valuable time by just submitting that to them so they can start there.
So are you saying my time is not valuable?
No, Mrs. Spence, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
Mr. Boyer, you want to go to number, where are we with time? I don't have the clock in front of me right now. 3 minutes. Yeah, let's, I don't want to rush through anything. Maybe we should end there and pick up with number 8 next time.
Okay.
In one of my prior districts, I have a question. We had a program called Career Ed, and it was a little bit difficult to schedule, but we would let juniors or seniors leave the building, go to work in local businesses or local school districts if their career track was towards education. And they would shadow, and as a former health and phys ed teacher, they'd help me with health and phys ed class. I mean, they'd help officiate and they'd help instruct. After I did the instruction, they would then assist and demonstrate. Boyertown had a pretty high success rate as far as retaining students who would go to school and then come back into the district to teach in the district. Do we have anything at all like that, Mr. Rodriguez?
If I'm understanding the correlation, I would say probably our ECE program is the place where we spend a lot of time. And I think folks have seen some of the things that they do, and the ECE teacher herself is an exact example of that. She went through ECE as early childhood education. She went through that knowing full well that one day she wanted to not, she taught young kids for quite a long time, but she knew one day she would want to come back to her alma mater. So we actively recruit from there. Obviously, I think we have a deep, we don't get them all, obviously. Right. Some of them move away or they have other things they want to do, et cetera, but we certainly let them know that there's a lot of opportunity here, and we have been successful. And of course, people get married, people move away, people do different things, but that is one area where I've had conversation within the past month of how do we make sure that every seat is full in that program. Ideally, and board members may remember that we looked at opening up another secondary focused education program, but based on what our students told us that they would choose one. Basically, we would be robbing from one pool for the other, and the last thing we want to do is hurt an existing thriving successful program by adding another. So we've decided at this point, until every seat is full and we have a waiting list, we're not going to do that. Right now we're close to full, but we're not fully at capacity there.
Thank you. Mrs. Bearden, you have 39 seconds.
Thank you. So over the years, I've spoke about some things that we did when I was in the district and I was younger as a student, and those are things that were tried and true that helped. And so now moving forward, not to say what we did, but to say how we can enhance what we did. We had high school shadowing, right? So we had high schoolers come down to our elementary schools. They helped to support classrooms. They had they didn't necessarily know they wanted to be teachers, but they, started that. They enjoyed it and realized it was something that they wanted to do. I don't know if those students are now teachers because they didn't return to the district per se, right? So that's the part of the tracking that we don't necessarily have, but it was something that worked very well. The younger students enjoyed seeing people like them in different areas and in their classrooms specifically. We also had mentors who came into the classrooms, and that was something that happened all year long. And now with the help of virtual, we were also able to go out and shadow. But now that we're virtual, we don't have to have those persons come into the classrooms physically. We can have those mentors come into the classrooms all year. They don't have to be alumni persons, but they could be any leaders or any parents or any FAC members that can virtually, tap into the classrooms and answer questions and have some good moments. So, of course, those things would have to be vetted through, who those persons would have to be vetted. But certainly, there's things that we can be doing moving forward. Then, like I said, we know better, we do better. And we now have some breathing room that we didn't have before, some funding that we didn't have before that we can take into consideration and vet and see what works best for us to start out as a trial basis and come back together, see what worked and what didn't work, kind of use that as, an initial starting point and a pilot program, and move forward from there. And what doesn't work, we can remove.
Thank you,
Mrs. Bearden. I'm sorry, Mr. Klein, if I may, just Mrs.
Sure.
Bearden's comments reminded me, and I was remiss in not stating, because I know that this is something that she and I have talked about, giving our students more opportunities. So of course we do have the Where Everyone Belongs program and the Link Crew, which is mentorship. It's not a paid thing, but it's definitely getting our students in with our staff. We also have job coaching, which I should have mentioned, and that job coaching takes our students and puts them in different types of and it could be anything. We have a couple of our students from our life skills programs who are helping in our pre-K counts classrooms, doing a marvelous job. I was able to observe one earlier this week. We also have a student teaching program. So that student teaching program is above and beyond the ECE program I described before. It doesn't get a ton, we don't have 20 kids in there. So it's one of those programs that is more tailor-made for those students who have the room and want the experience, but it's still something that I try to promote wherever possible, because it's really a great opportunity, and we will pay our students wherever we can. And we do hire alumni at an alarming clip. So just wanted to make sure. I know we're out of time, but
wonderful. Thank you. That's kind of what I was speaking to initially. So thank you. Very nice board meeting. Our hard stop time, we went a little bit over, but I think it was a very good meeting. And Mr. Boyer, on the next agenda, would you make a note that we need to pick up at number 8, please?
Yep, you got it. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. That concludes our meeting. Is there any public comment?
Not at this time.
All right.
Mr. Santiago, can you just pause for a second? I think that someone did want public comment.
Yeah, now I see a hand raise.
Okay.
Mrs. Charles, welcome to our meeting.
Hi, I just wanted to say it was a good topic, and I like the idea of trying to find new ways to get our students into a more in-depth learning of Black culture. I just wanted to make a comment that last Friday, the 27th, that Pottstown Community Action had a Teacher Appreciation Day at Barth Elementary, and it went really well. Mr. Armato was there, Deborah Spence, and 2 family advisory committees members, Mercedes and Kismet, came to help serve food. We had NAACP there, and they served a large lunch, and we had a big collection of school supplies for the teachers. So if you know of any teachers that have cool things that they want just for themselves, not specifically for the students, please send the suggestions our way for next year.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for doing what you did for those teachers. What a wonderful effort. I'm sure they appreciated it, and as do we.
Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Santiago?
Yes, we have another comment.
Okay. Good evening, Ms. Jackson.
Good evening. Mercedes Jackson, High Street, Pottstown, PA. I just wanted to say in regards to, so Gear Up had a trip today to Kutztown University, and we were just speaking about that too, having HBCUs on there. I think it's very important for children to see other, peers and colleagues that look like them, because if they see it, they can achieve it. And I wanted to say that on this trip, which I was there, volunteer my time as usual, we seen a Pottstown student, and she had her jacket on and she walked with us and everything. It was very nice. You should have seen the students hugging her like she was a celebrity. It makes a difference. And then I was doing a chant, but of course they didn't want to do that. They were on Pottstown chant at KU, but they kind of dissed me on that one. Also, I wanted to just say too, in regards to the parent involvement piece, I do understand that when children get to high school, we are teaching them to be independent and more responsible. But if it's possible to have parents, like when there's things going out in regards to like dances or clubs or, students to volunteer or work the school store, if the parents can get those emails and those blasts as well, that would be greatly appreciated, because at the end of the day, when our students sign up for these things, it's us parents who need to take them. It's us parents who needs to pay for their uniforms or their gear or whatever tools that they need to be successful in whatever they sign up for. So that was my only concern. It's like, we're always talking about parent engagement. And I'm a single parent, and I'm not only here for my own, but I'm here for everybody else's. So if the school district can just please make it more easy for me to even get those emails, because even if I get it, I will share it with the other parents that are actively involved as well, such as Kismet, Inez, and Tamara Charles. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of frustrating for the ones who are involved. We're not hearing it, and that's not cool. So if we can just, keep that in mind, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a blessed week.
Thank you for volunteering, and thank you for that suggestion. Mrs. Kancianik, I might have missed your hand earlier. I'm sorry if I did.
I
Mr.
didn't raise my hand. Did
Yeah,
you
Mr.
raise your
Klein,
question?
I believe you're seeing Mrs. Jackson's hand.
Oh, okay.
It was
All
right next to, that was confusing. Yep.
All right. I don't know who to turn this over to, Mr. Rodriguez, since Mrs. Lawrence isn't here.
Mhm.
Mrs. Bearden looks like she's filling in. Mrs. Bearden,
Yes, I'm
turn
pitching
it over a
for
little
Mrs.
late to you. I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. It was a good topic, so thank you. We can go ahead and get started if the agenda can populate. So we stay on task for Mrs. Lawrence. And I'll go ahead and start it off with public comment. Do we have anyone that signed in who wants to speak?
Not at this time, Ms. Bearden.
Great, thank you. So moving right along, I guess we have Mr. Rodriguez for international items, the gifted screener update.
Yes, this is just an update for the board, and I just wanted everyone to know what's going on. As board members, we often tell you well in advance what it is that we're considering, and then oftentimes once you voted on it, it feels like, well, okay, we should be doing that, and for the most part that's correct, but it takes a little bit of time. In this case, it's going to take even more time. So we talked about gifted screeners, and I won't go into that, assuming that everyone remembers some of that conversation, that we're going to hit a grade level. We're going to try and catch, we're going to work on our equity levels, because we know that that's not good in two directions. Number one, we're not catching the minority kids that we know we need to. And number two, we're just not catching all the kids we need to. We're below percentage, we're below target based on a school district of our size. So we're headed in the right direction. The issue that we have run into is that we're bringing on some new psychologists that are not on right now. So if we were to initiate that screener in the timeline that we had originally planned, we would have kids that would need tested, but no psychs to do it. So we're going to delay for now until we give those psychologists a chance to get on board, get their sea legs, so to speak, and then we will pick up. So there's going to be a few month delay, and we just wanted to update board members to make sure they understood why we were doing this and the fact that it would be delayed. Any questions? Okay, thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Sorry, I would like to ask, do you have kind of like a time frame? Would it be like you would have something for us in like the middle of 2024, or like what are we speaking about in time?
That is a great and fair question, and the answer is no, not yet. I've been working with Mr. Jeffries and Mr. Oxenford on this. Of course, we'd like to go right away, but the reality is, with some of the movement, there are some moving parts. So if there are a lot of special education concerns, clearly we need to just make sure we're not overwhelming people. But it is our objective to get it done. And we had the thought that, is there even really a need to say anything? We weren't locked into any specific timeline, but I just felt like since we had talked about it, I wanted to make sure everybody knew what was going on.
Thank you. I see Mrs. Spence.
Yes, thanks, Board President. Just FYI, Mercedes Jackson was locked out of the meeting. Can someone send her a link so she can get back in, please? Thank you.
Sure, thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay. We have any other questions related to the gifted program? If not, okay. So then we have Dr. Latanya White Springfield. Thank you for being here, and you're next with college and career readiness.
Thank you, Board President. Hello, everyone. Hello, Board. I just wanted to come out, talk a little bit about college and career readiness, and just give a little overview of what it is and some of the efforts that we're doing. I feel that it's very important, and I kind of put Stephen on the spot a little bit because in our eyes, this is one area that we should easily be striving to be able to reach nearly 100% when it's time for reporting. And I will go into what that means. And we were not able to meet those requirements last year. So he really pushed to make sure that we had some solid concrete plans in place in order to move forward and meet that criteria. So I believe it was last year. It could have been the year before. All of my years are kind of running together. My stepdaughter just had a baby like 2 hours ago. So her smallest kid is upstairs yelling. So hopefully you will not hear him as my daughter is babysitting right now. But a few years ago, I presented to the board what they call the 339 plan, which is technically the comprehensive K through 12 career and guidance services plan. That plan identifies what assets that we have in the district to support students, looking at the counselors being able to break down each piece of their job throughout the day and throughout the year, but also identify what other supports we have to ensure that our students are able to be exposed to college and career awareness while matching those different things and activities to the career standards. So the requirement for the career readiness is important because it affects us when we look at our future ready index. And what they're looking at is, are we meeting the indicators? So those indicators are broken down for several things. One is to ensure that all of our students have access to career exploration and preparation activities that are standards aligned and evidence-based. The next one is to identify the percentage of students who demonstrate meaningful engagement in career exploration and preparation and implementation of individualized career plans through separate, specific measurable measures based on grade level benchmarks aligned to the Pennsylvania CEW standards, which are the career and work standards. We want to also look at the percentage of students who by the end of grade 5 demonstrate engagement in career explorations and preparation to the CEW standards. The state oftentimes gives examples of career inventory. So one that the state utilizes is PA Career Zone. We here at the district, we utilize Naviance as our local career exploration and preparation program. And we also get curriculum through the Naviance program as well. We look at the percentage of students who by the end of grade 8, similar to 5, create an individualized career plan and participate in career preparation activities aligned to the standards. And then the percentage of students who by the end of grade 11 implement that individualized career plan through ongoing development of their career portfolio and participation in career prep aligned to the standards. So what does that mean for us? So I'm going to go through these pieces and then I'll talk to you about our efforts that we're putting in place. So the reporting that happens at the end of the year, and PIMS prints out a spreadsheet and it's either a yes or a no. Did 100% of your students in grades 5 and grades 8 and grades 11 meet the standards, meet the indicators? So for grades 5 and grade 6, you need 6 pieces of evidence at the end of each of those grades. And then at the grade 11, you need 8 pieces of evidence. So what we do as a district is we start that early on in elementary so that students are at least getting 1 or 2 pieces of evidence a year. So when they get to grade 5, we're not cramming them with stuff and making it feel like it's work, but we want them to enjoy being able to understand and explore career explorations. And then in grade 11, by the time they get there, and with high school, a lot of these pieces are already built in the curriculum, but I will talk about that later. And then just ensuring that these different evidence pieces and activities align directly with the 4 standards. And that is what our counselors are there to do. So what are our efforts? So after Stephen went on the Stephen rant, because he was just as upset as anybody who's reading it, because this is an area, especially with us being a career and tech comprehensive high school, that we should be nailing it. So what we ended up doing is identifying a staff member, which is Heather Daly, as someone to have an extra set of eyes over our 339 plan, because other than person error, what we've identified is there was also some system errors that skewed our data to make it seem as though we weren't hitting a high enough target to be able to say yes, that we met that standard. So Heather's coming in, and a piece of her position would be basically oversight of our 339 plan. So some of the things that entailed in her position is collaborating with the counselors to monitor the college and career readiness progress of all students in their respective schools, but have an intentional focus on students in grades 5, 8, and 11, as those are the reporting years. Another huge piece is registration. Students who come in, say like they're coming in grades 5, 8, and 11, even if it's near the end of the year, and they have 0 pieces of evidence, it is the responsibility of the district that student is in to make sure that they get that those pieces of evidence. We have put some fail safes in there with our registration requests for documents, trying to get whatever we can, and then working with Naviance to try to get a list of the school districts that also use Naviance so that we could then import some of those evidence pieces. But it is the responsibility of the district that the student moves into to make sure that they get all of those pieces. So Heather also monitors those the registrants that are coming in those grade levels. She also runs monthly reports to be able to track the students that are completing evidence in Naviance, so that when she's meeting with those counselors on a bi-weekly or monthly basis, that they're able to target the students who may have attendance issues that haven't gotten into the building to be able to get exposure, or for whatever reason are not completing those different activities or artifacts. She's also able to ensure that all eligible students are uploaded, have access, and assignments in Naviance. I know that when we switched over to Power School, we were running into a few issues with uploading those students, especially students in 3rd grade, and then making sure that we're aligning the curriculum to the specific student, along with that student to the specific council. She also works collaboratively with me to ensure that the pieces that we're looking for, and if there's any accountability measures that need to be taken, that I can work alongside with her, and also attending our counselor meetings. We are looking at making some revamps to our 339 plan, which when that does occur, obviously I would be bringing in front of the board again, so that you guys have an idea of what's going on in our buildings and review and have time for input. And then lastly with that is constant communication with our data team through IT to just ensure that what is being put in is accurate. So when the time comes to pull data, we are being able to do that without any issue. So what are we doing as a district? So at the high school level, our counselors now go actually push into classrooms and they do guided group instruction with character education. But in addition to that, they have advisory classes for some of our younger students. And they meet 45 minutes every other week. And they facilitate and they have rotating topics. Of those rotating topics, one of them is college and career readiness. So every 8 weeks, they're getting a full 45 minutes of just college and career readiness. Other things that they're doing as part of graduation requirements, career explorations and personal finance align with the standards to be able to be used as evidence components, not to mention the actual different activities that occur within those courses. We do have a part-time career counselor, Susan Prick, who is phenomenal. She is doing ongoing college visits. I do want to say that HBCUs are on her list. We have gone to them, so yay to that. But if they're not happening weekly, they're happening almost weekly, whether they're coming to the building or the students are going out to them. Putting together career fairs, and then other career-related events that happen within the high school. As most of everyone hopefully in the audience knows that we are a comprehensive high school, so we do have the full career and tech ed program. So a lot of that can be used as evidence pieces for our students. They also have the Gear Up Cohort 1. From last year, they were in the middle school and now they're up at the high school. And I'm not going to get deep into that because I do have Mr. Horn on the line who is going to be able to give you a brief overview of Gear Up. The middle school, they do quarterly meetings with their 5th and 8th grade counselors just to ensure that we're on track for reporting. And throughout the PBIS that is taught in all schools, some of those components actually align with the college and career standards. So they're able to use some things out of there. Counselors push into classrooms and the social studies and the science classrooms to do guided group instruction specifically related to career readiness. There also are different pieces of career programming that occur in their FCS and their computer courses. And this year we started cohort 2 of Gear Up, which is starting with the 8th grade in the middle school. At the elementary level, we collaborate with the librarians with the Naviance lessons and curriculum, and they're going to actually start pushing into classes, not just for their regular guided group instruction, but also to focus on college and career readiness. And last but not least, our virtual programs in our off buildings like Edgewood or Beach Street Learning Studio works directly with the counselors and the curriculum in Naviance to be able to make sure that those students are meeting those criteria with additional check-ins if we're seeing that those students aren't doing that. So I do not want to bore you with me just going on and on, but those are some of the efforts. And before I push it over to Mr. Horn, I just wanted to see if you guys had any questions. Ms. Spence?
Yes, ma'am. Question is, how often do you rotate the careers? So like a kindergarten or pre-K student may not necessarily have a career track for today's careers, because obviously it's going to change. Like, 10 years ago, YouTuber and influencers, they were laughed at, gamers were laughed at 20 years ago. And now those are like $1 million careers. So also, is there anything about like driving or navigating a drone? Again, that didn't exist maybe 20, 25 years ago, but now, it's a real career. So is there any effort in circulating or revamping the careers that our younger kids are getting ready for?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. What we've learned in education is things evolve. I feel like sometimes when I don't know how to do something, I'm trying to call one of the elementary students, like, how do I do this? Because they know computers better than us. But it's really about being able to expose them to things that are actually happening now. We sometimes try to fight against those things, like, no, get off of that. This isn't how we learned it, instead of trying to be innovative. Because if we're not rotating those things in, we're not technically preparing our students to compete at a global level. So yeah, things that we're doing is not just focusing specifically on careers. What we really try to focus in on is interest and strengths, because what we know is I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So other students, especially with that pre-K and kindergarten, may not know that, but what they will know is what they're strong in and what things that interest them and things that they like. So that's why it's not just, let's talk about college, let's talk about trades. It's also, let's talk about fun. Let's talk about the internet. Let's talk about YouTube. Let's use those in our classes. And I do think that some teachers are a little bit more open to understanding that, especially some of our teachers who are high in using technology, and some of our novice teachers straight out of college, because they used it within their schools. I think what COVID taught us is, as adults, we know hardly the amount of things that some of our younger kids know as it comes to some of these newer things, or being able to use specific things like AI or YouTube to reach audiences that we know our traditional things aren't doing. So absolutely, it's not even about when. We're trying to push it in as much as we can, and by utilizing not just what we know, but bringing in outside people in to be able to share their experiences, so that even if a student wasn't thinking about it, they may hear it now and say, oh, that might be something I'm interested in.
Okay, thank you. And just another quick question. Is there any, and you probably may not know this, but is there anywhere in the curriculum where students learn critical thinking skills? Because a lot of things that I learned or didn't learn when I was in elementary school, like, the multiplication table, now I got a calculator for that, grammar, I got Grammarly for that. So a lot of those things that are, I guess just basic skills, there's an app for it. But if you can know how to put numbers in a calculator, but can you really analyze what those numbers mean? And when you put it together, what does that look like? Can you see trends? Can you see this? And so that critical thinking skills, comes with all of that. And are our students really learning that? I'm sure they are, but I just wanted to know if there's like a path in that direction.
Ms. Spence, I'm starting to think you were looking through my standards. That's actually one of the things that are aligned to the standards. What we utilize a lot in our elementary programs is the SEL programs and being able to learn in that. So that's why it's not just always focused on, this is what I want to do, because that may help you find a career, but that might not help you obtain or maintain work. I think when we're looking at PBIS and explaining why it's important, to be able to understand and differentiate from one setting to another. I talk to kids all the time when it comes to behavior about, sometimes you got to be a chameleon. Like, you're not going to talk to me the same way you may talk to your friends or the same way you may talk to your pastor, but being able to understand and use situational awareness to be able to figure out what toolbox you want to open and what tool you want to pull out of. So that's the goal is trying to build that within just the course is not just something singular and call it career and college readiness, but some of the activities will have to align to that because it is actually embedded in the standard.
That's great. Thank you for that explanation and good questions, Ms. Spence. We certainly know we can start out in one focus area, and by the end of any given set of years, we are in a totally different focus area. But all of those things work together to make us more viable, right? We're able to be more versatile, and we're able to be pulled into a different direction and be successful for our families. So that's good. And yes, we are. It's not the same as it was 10 years ago when everyone said, oh, to be successful, you have to be X, Y, and Z. And that's something that I tell all the students, that to be successful, you are just able to do what you enjoy doing, whatever that is for you, whatever that means for you, and be able to take care of yourself and your families. So as I've said several times, mechanics are millionaires nowadays. It's not the days of before. So definitely we need to be focused and keep our students as flexible as possible with guidance in those areas. So thank you, Dr. White Springfield. And you said you have Mr. Horn on.
I do. So I want to introduce Mr. Evan Horn. Mr. Horn is the program manager for our Gear Up program, and he oversees both Gear Up Cohort 1, which is currently in our 9th grade, and Cohort 2, which started this year in our 8th grade. And I turn it over to you, Mr. Horn.
Looks like he's froze up. Mr. Horn, you might want to turn your camera off. There you are.
Something.
Oh, there.
Great.
I seem to be losing.
Mr. Horn, we've had good experience if you turn off your video, and it's not the best experience, but it does work if you simply speak. But the video seems to chew up a lot of bandwidth. So if you turn off your video and just rely on, make sure you're not on mute, but hit the stop video button, you might have better luck.
I will also text him and tell him that in case he can't hear.
And I think we lost him. Mr.
Okay.
Santiago, can you look for him to come back in then? There we go.
Can you hear us, Mr. Horn?
Yes, I'm very sorry. Zoom just kind of rebooted on me.
It happens. No worries. Okay. Thank
Perfect
you so
timing.
much. Yes, go right ahead.
So as Dr. White Springfield said, my name is Evan Horn. I'm the district manager for the Gear Up team in Pottstown. So I oversee our team that's at the middle school and the high school. If you're unaware of what Gear Up does or is, I'll give you a brief intro. So Gear Up stands for Gaining Early Awareness and Readiness for Undergraduate Programs. What that means is basically what Dr. White Springfield was talking about, is we are for college and career readiness and exposure. And we do that through a variety of ways. We do it through academic and college and career counseling. We do it through tutoring, which is always one of our highest performing areas. We have a lot of people that get into the classrooms every day, which is great. Math is always a big one. Through different mentoring programs, we do college and career workshops. We do academic workshops. We do non-cognitive skill workshops. We do all those throughout the school year. We take kids on college visits. I know Miss Jackson popped on earlier and said she was at the Kutztown. She was a chaperone for us. I always appreciate when parents come along. They have a good voice when we're trying to corral a bunch of kids on a college campus. But we do many college visits. We do job site visits, educational field trips. We bring in speakers. We do a whole bunch of different stuff. And it's been very successful here at Pottstown. As Dr. White said before, we We started with one cohort, which is currently the 9th grade students. We had great success last year. I have a couple numbers here with me that I was able to put together with some of my some classes, and we 96% of students that were enrolled in the 8th grade last school year all received at least one service, and that's all the students across who were enrolled or de-enrolled throughout the year. On the average student received, and we document everything by hour, so the average student received over 36 hours of services, whether that's counseling, tutoring, workshops, trips, what have you. And one student received this is a funny number, one student received 184 hours. And our college going workshops, our non-cognitive skill workshops, our academic workshops, we do those for the entirety of the grade, or at least we try our best to do those for the entirety of the grade. So every student between 8th and 9th grade this year will be getting those workshops, and we try to spread out the tutoring and mentoring to as many students as possible too, depending on the program. And just to give a little insight into our team, to know who's there and who's at the high school and middle school throughout, we have 4 people at the high school, 4 people at the middle school, one of which at each is a certified counselor. So we have certified counselors working in hand with the counselors for the schools to provide all the services and also help with the 339 artifacts that Dr. White Springfield was referring to earlier. I'm not sure if I'm frozen again.
No, we can hear you just fine, Mr. Horn. Do you have anything more to add? You might be froze now.
Oh, sorry. It seemed like I was frozen again. I was just waiting a second. Yes, just a couple more things that I just wanted to hit on.
Thank you.
So just as an example, right, for last year, our
You're froze again, so you might want to turn your camera feed off and just use your voice. I know this happened to me on another another call years ago, so it happens. Are you still with us? If you are, turn your camera off and then try. Okay. So he had a few more things, so maybe if Mr. Horn can come back in, because it may have just kicked him out. But perhaps we can just move on. Mr. Oxenford, do you have a curriculum fall calendar review for us?
Yes, I do, and I'll sort of stall a little bit because it looks like I can't tell if Evan went off and came back on, so some space just because I know he is visiting.
sorry, everybody.
It's okay. Go right ahead. You're welcome to go ahead and finish. No, Mr. Oxenford, you want to give it a go? He'll pop back in. We could always let him finish out once he pops back on.
Yeah, I can certainly go ahead and get started. So we're entering November, which is unbelievable to think that we're already into this month. We're a quarter of the way into the school year, and I just wanted to give a little bit of a recap of where we're at in the school year with the calendar, the professional development schedule, and our benchmark assessments. So the reason I bring this up is a lot of the calendar this past school year was completely based off of the idea of building in the benchmark assessments, which will happen 4 times over the course of the year in grades kindergarten through 8. And we're currently, as of yesterday, starting the 2nd round of our benchmark assessments. And the question may be like, Ryan, why did we put in all of these assessments? And the answer is very deeply, on page 17 of the comprehensive plan, this is very deeply based on what we needed to have in place. And page 17 of our comprehensive plan professional practices for effective instruction calls out 4 particular areas in which the assessments were identified as areas in which we needed to improve. And I'll read those out for you. So the principal monitors and supports the school-wide use of frequent and continuous assessments appropriate to diverse learners to support teacher differentiation of learning. Principal administrative team provides professional development opportunities for teachers to learn how to read and analyze data to make informed instructional decisions. Teachers regularly use standardized diagnostic, formative, and summative assessments to identify student learning needs and student progress towards rigorous standards. And district and school leaders provide time and resources to ensure regular data-focused cycles of inquiry and school/district-wide data reviews. So essentially what we have in place is a district calendar that supports the process of the benchmark assessments followed up by data review with instructional planning. And the way we set it up this year was that with your approval, we purchased the Linkit benchmark assessment, which covers grades kindergarten through 8th grade. And we, like I said just a minute or two ago, we're in round number 2 of our benchmark assessments. And in about a week and a half, the consultants from Linkit are actually going to work with our building administrators and our instructional coaches, our MTSS coaches, to make sure that they are prepared with the live results of that data to make sure that they can facilitate the data review meeting on November 17th. So there's a district-wide no school day, but it is a teacher work day. It's a district-wide in-service day that is focused on data review and instructional planning. So this is built into the calendar to allow all of those teachers to review the set of benchmark data and establish some instructional planning to prepare for the next cycle of benchmark assessments, which will occur in late January. Also, what you'll see is just after November 17th, so that's on a Friday, on the Monday and Tuesday after that are parent conferences. So what will happen is after the coaches and the principals are versed in the data and facilitate the data review and instructional planning meetings on the 17th, part of November 17th will be preparation for speaking to parents, for one-on-one conferences with parents, for teachers to be able to talk about how their children are progressing through those particular grade level standards and talk about not only achievement, but their progress and where things stand and why there are some upcoming instructional priorities. And so those parent conferences happen on the Monday and Tuesday after that November 17th meeting. So those dates are November 20th and 21st. And then after our next set of benchmark assessments, like I said, which are in late January, February 2nd, we have our next full data day, which is a data review instructional planning. And the week after that, February 8th, which is just shy of a week later, will be the next round of K-8 conferences where parents will be invited to participate in the next round of conferences and hear an update of how their children is making progress through the standards. So what we're trying to do is not only adhere to the comprehensive plan where we called out the need for ongoing data, we wanted to make sure we build in time and ensure that our teachers knew how to analyze the data and make instructional decisions. But then we wanted to connect the parent component to that to make sure that we're giving regular update based on objective information as to how students are progressing through the data or progressing through the standards. So I think most families are up to speed with the fact that we're at the end of the first marking period. It actually ended, I think, last Friday on October 27th. There was an early dismissal, and that's a little period of time when the district shuts down and allows teachers the opportunity to go ahead and start posting grades. And November 6th, which is Monday, is the first date that our first marking period grades are available for parents. So they should on that date, and then they'll obviously be reminded from every form of communication I think that we have that starting Monday they'll be able to check the report card grades for their children kindergarten through 8 or first grade through 8, kindergarten post at mid-year. And that is a pretty lengthy update, but hopefully a complete update of the fall calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Oxenford. Does anyone have any questions with that information? Yeah. Will we receive any kind of summary of the benchmarks to see actually what they look like? I know that would be really broad, but could we see some sort of summary from that?
Yes. So at the beginning of the year, it was brand new, right? And we knew that even the administration of it, I'm gonna use the word clumsy. It's my word, not anyone else's. It's clumsy because you have it's an end of year benchmark. So that means students are taking an assessment based on what they have to achieve and essentially demonstrate proficiency on by the end of the year. So this is new territory for a lot of students and definitely new territory for a lot of teachers because like they're looking at this and these questions are hard. Like we know this is essentially what you have to be able to demonstrate proficiency on by the end of the school year. So I think we're new to it, even the administration of it, of like, what does it look like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, where students are not independent. We recognized very quickly in our primary grade levels that we had to have additional adults support the administration of it because they're doing paper pencil and they've got to turn the page. And that is an undertaking in itself, making sure the kids are on the correct page when, they're still learning page numbers. Like our coaches had to be unbelievably creative with supporting that process and really facilitating it. So the answer is yes. At this moment, obviously, we're just getting into the second benchmark, but it is extremely reasonable to make sure that the committee has an overview of essentially what type of things are on this test. The other thing that we do have is because for the first time in what I can remember, we have ongoing professional development and the ability to have like the consultants. So, I'm going to take a shot here, but back in time, we would purchase a new product and whatever we would buy, the professional development, the ongoing support wasn't typically part of the package. So we had to essentially figure it out for ourselves. And what we found was with each of our products with Edmentum, like the exact path of the products that are used at the middle school and high school, and then our K-8 benchmark assessments, we found that our consultants, our contacts, our customer service managers are they're extremely responsive, they're friendly, they are incredibly informative, and they've met every one of our requests and have supported us through. So I think it would be very reasonable to, once we are able to dissect that information and figure out what's the most user-friendly way to bring that forward, we can absolutely do that because I think there should be interest at not only the board level, but I'm going to say at the parent level. I think parents should be highly interested and in tune with what this is, and then also avoid the misconceptions of it. So, when they sit at the November conference, and I'm just going to pick a metaphor. So, I think we can conceptualize it. There's a bunch of red dots on there. Like, don't panic because again, this is what your child has to do by the end of the year. And over the next couple of months, we're going to focus on this. And in the spring, we'll focus on this. So here are the particular areas where we would expect to see some of these colors from red turn to yellow or to green, or however we can conceptualize it. So I think we'll be in a place where we'll be able to show that to everyone, but it is going to be important for parents to understand it because I think it'll tell a much, much better story than some of the current and traditional practices that we use in education.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see Mr. Horn back on, but I have one other question, and it might be quite preliminary between yourself and Mr. Rodriguez. Will we have sort of any volunteer program summer school for between the 2023-2024 school year start? We know we have summer school for those in between who had an issue with a specific class failure and so forth, but will we have, I know right after COVID, it was a big push that we're trying to bring our students back up to speed, and that was wonderful. I was just wondering if any sort of scheduling or if it could be scheduled, if you even think it would be viable to have, again, the volunteer sort of summer program, and if we would even have staffing for that. It's just a question.
Are you taking this, Mr. Rodriguez?
I certainly can. So Mrs. Bearden, it's a great question. Internally, we've had some good discussion as to the veracity and effectiveness of summer school. It's fairly low on the international effective strategies list. We knew that going into it, but it was something that was part of the ESSER grant. So what we told everybody is that expect this one to be the last one, meaning the one we just had. Now we are debating whether or not there should be some level of, smaller program. It was definitely popular. We were able to pay teachers because we had the money. We were able to pay them far more than we've ever paid them before. We're looking at the what's left of the grant money to say, all right, we're certainly not going to give it back. So, if there would be some leftover, which at this point I don't imagine, but it's possible, that would probably be the very first bucket that we go to say, hey, even if it's not a 4-day per week, 20+ day program, if it's a 3-day per week, 15-day program or 10-day program or something of that sort. We have debated that. We've not come to a decision because obviously we have to see a couple of different things. How effective has it been year over year? Do we have the grant dollars to support it and the staff that want to do it? I do think if we continue to pay at the per diem rate that we have been, staff won't be a problem. But we do have to look at those other factors. So I would put it at 70-30. 70% we're not moving forward, 30% we could move forward.
Okay, that's fair. Thank you.
Mhm.
Does anyone have any questions with that said, or still even with what Mr. Oxenford presented? No? Okay. Perhaps we can invite Mr. Horn back just as a closeout for another meeting. Maybe he can give us a quick summary and recap and then finish out his thoughts from there. And that way the board could ask questions at that time of Mr. Horn. Do we have any public comment?
Not at this time, Mrs. Bearden.
Okay. Does the committee have any additional items, or am I overlooking anything from our modified agenda? No? Okay. Looks like we will close this one out almost right on schedule at 8:23, and the next meeting would be December the 7th. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Bye-bye.